Marvel and DC have been copying each other for 80 years. Some of it was deliberate, some was pure coincidence. And one of the most famous cases happened because a Marvel editor literally told his writer to steal a DC character and steal a better one. Let's get into it.
Darkseid versus Thanos.
Starting with Darkseid. In 1970, Jack Kirby introduced the character as ruler of Apocalypse, a cosmic tyrant whose entire existence is built around finding the anti-life equation to strip free will from every living being in the universe. Massive build, stone cold expression, the big endgame threat of an entire universe. 3 years later, in 1973, writer Jim Starlin debuts Thanos in Iron Man number 55. Purple-skinned cosmic warlord, obsessed with imposing his idea of order on the universe. The big endgame threat of an entire universe. You can see it, right? But let me tell you the part that makes this different from every other copycat story. Starlin didn't quietly borrow and keep quiet about it. His Marvel editor, Roy Thomas, looked at the early Thanos sketches and said something that has since become comics legend. If you're going to steal one of the new gods, at least rip off Darkseid, the really good one. A Marvel editor telling his own writer to steal a DC character, specifically the better one. And honestly, it gets even more layered than that. Starlin hadn't originally based Thanos on Darkseid at all. He'd based the character on Metron, a completely different new god. One who pretty much just sits in a floating chair and collects knowledge. Not exactly the most terrifying villain in comics. Thomas pushed him toward Darkseid, and Thanos became what he became. The character still ended up in completely different places though, which I think is the real story here. Darkseid wants control, wants to remove free will, wants to impose order. In Starlin's original run, Thanos was doing all of it to impress the literal personification of death. Billions of lives erased as a romantic gesture, which is either the most unhinged love story in fiction or a genuinely terrifying villain motivation. Either way, it's not Darkseid. That's what happens when a copy lands in the hands of a good enough writer.
The Atlantean rulers. Who actually came first?
Next, everyone calls Namor Marvel's Aquaman. And honestly, if you know the history, that drives you crazy. Namor the Submariner first appeared in Marvel Comics #1 in 1939. One of the very first Marvel characters ever published. Son of a human sea captain and an Atlantean princess, ruler of an underwater kingdom, commands sea life, deeply hostile toward the surface world. Aquaman first appeared in 1941, 2 years later. Also the son of a human and an Atlantean. Also the ruler of an underwater kingdom. Also commands sea life. Also constantly in conflict with the surface world. I mean, come on. DC's character came after Marvel's. So when people say Marvel's Aquaman, they've got the whole timeline backwards.
But my enemies call me Namor.
In the 1950s, superhero comics fell out of fashion. Namor went on publishing hiatus, no books, no appearances for years. And during that window, DC's writers updated Aquaman's backstory. He went from son of a marine scientist to son of a sea captain and an Atlantean princess, which is pretty much word for word Namor's original origin. While Namor was off the stands and couldn't do anything about it, DC literally rewrote Aquaman's backstory to match his. And then Aquaman got his own cartoon in the 60s. Then Super Friends in the 70s and 80s. Namor got almost nothing. By the time a general audience knew what Atlantis was, they assumed it belonged to DC. The character who got there first became the cultural afterthought. That's either deeply unfair or a masterclass in brand building. I'll let you decide. Either way, Namor's MCU debut in Wakanda Forever gave him back everything. Feathered ankles, Mesoamerican origins, and one of the strongest character entrances the MCU has had in years. I'm doing a $100 Amazon gift card giveaway to celebrate when this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers. No action is required to enter. I'll randomly pick a winner once we hit the milestone. If you want to follow the journey or see the winner announcement, feel free to subscribe.
The Merc and the Terminator.
Now to my favorite copycat. Deathstroke the Terminator debuted in 1980. Real name, Slade Wilson. Enhanced mercenary, world-class combatant, swords, firearms, tactical genius. A mask covering his full face in a two-color divided pattern, orange and black. One of the most dangerous fighters in the DC universe. Deadpool debuted in 1991. Real name, Wade Wilson. Mercenary, swords, firearms. A mask covering his full face in a two-color divided pattern, red and black. You guys see it.
Oh, your poor
When Rob Liefeld showed the designs to Fabian Nicieza, the response was immediate. This is Deathstroke from Teen Titans. So they named the character Wade Wilson as a direct inside joke on Slade Wilson, published it in a mainstream comic. Come on. And Marvel was so openly aware of all of this that a 2013 Deadpool comic just leaned straight into it. After Wade calls Sabretooth a Wolverine ripoff, Sabretooth fires back by calling him Slade Deathstroke's actual first name, directly to his face. The in-universe joke was basically writing itself at that point. I think Deadpool became something Deathstroke never attempted to be. Deathstroke is a serious, credible, terrifying operative. He functions entirely within the logic of his universe. No winking, no meta-awareness, just ruthless and precise. Deadpool is fully aware he's in a comic. He comments on a Marvel editorial decisions. He has shown up in his own issues to argue with his own storylines.
Because I'm Marvel Jesus.
Honestly, I love it. The copy evolved past the original in popular culture. The copy now has $2 billion films, and the copy's entire identity is built on knowing it's a copy and not caring even a little bit about it.
Green Arrow versus Hawkeye.
Now, let's come to the archers. No powers, trick arrows, same basic idea. You guys know this one, but the story behind them is worth it. Green Arrow debuted in 1941. Oliver Queen, billionaire, survival experience, teaches himself archery on a desert island, comes home as a vigilante. Custom bow, specialty arrows, no superpowers, visually inspired by Robin Hood. Hawkeye debuted in 1964. Clint Barton, marksman, circus background, no superpowers. Custom bow, specialty arrows. When artist Don Heck designed the character, he pretty much described him as almost like a Robin Hood type character. I can see why people think one copied the other, but honestly, both were pulling from the same centuries-old archetype. The difference is 23 years, and everything that happened to these two characters after they were created. Green Arrow became one of DC's most political characters. The comics gave him actual views on wealth inequality, institutional failure, the economics of crime. He became the mayor of Star City. The man had a platform. Hawkeye went the complete opposite direction. Lost his family in the snap and responded by putting on a mask and quietly dismantling criminal organizations across multiple countries. There's no platform, no politics, just grief and a bow and a very long list. One went into city government. One became a silent vigilante in a different country. Honestly, both are pretty understandable responses to trauma when you think about it.
Man-Thing versus Swamp Thing.
Okay, this one doesn't go the direction you're expecting. 1971, Marvel publishes Man-Thing in Savage Tales #1. A scientist named Ted Sallis transformed into a mute, empathetic swamp creature after an experiment goes wrong. He protects his swamp. Anyone who feels fear while touching him burns. 2 months later, DC publishes Swamp Thing in House of Secrets #92. A scientist named Alex Olson transformed into a swamp creature after an experiment goes wrong. 2 months apart. Both creative teams swear independently they had no knowledge of the other's work. And look, given that comic scripts are written months before publication, the production timelines don't even allow for one to have been copied from the other. Both were genuinely developed at the same time. But here's the detail that makes this story completely insane. I'm serious. Jerry Conway, who co-wrote Man-Thing, and Len Wein, who wrote Swamp Thing, were roommates, living together, working in the same apartment, creating the same character for competing publishers without either of them realizing it. Len Wein later said they genuinely had no idea. They weren't comparing notes. They were just two writers in the same flat, independently arriving at Swamp Monster as their creative destination for that month. Come on, that's the kind of thing that sounds made up. Okay, hold on. Real quick, Darkseid got copied, Namor got copied, Deathstroke got copied. Two guys in the same apartment accidentally copied each other without saying a single word. And now you're still watching without subscribing? You know what Deadpool would say to someone who's been watching this channel for free without subscribing? He'd break the fourth wall, look directly into the camera, and tell you to stop being the knockoff version of a fan. The original fan subscribed. Be the Deadpool. Hit subscribe. Own it with zero shame. You did it? Incredible. Wade Wilson would be proud.
Red Tornado versus the Vision.
Next one is genuinely hardest to explain. Red Tornado, DC August 1968, an android superhero who struggles to understand human emotion, deeply wants to connect with humanity, joins a superhero team. The Vision, Marvel, October 1968, an android superhero who struggles to understand human emotion, deeply wants to connect with humanity, joins a superhero team. Again, 2 months apart, same year, 2 companies. No evidence. Either team knew what the other was doing. I mean, the android who wants to be human is apparently a very specific idea that 2 entire creative rooms arrived at in the same calendar year independently without comparing notes. You can call it coincidence. You can call it the cultural moment. You can call it both companies drawing from the same science fiction conversation that was happening in 1968. I mean, it's probably all 3 at once. Either way, you can see why this keeps happening. For most of comics history, the same pool of writers and artists moved between Marvel and DC constantly. Jack Kirby worked at both. Len Wein wrote Man-Thing's second appearance and created Swamp Thing. Writers spent decades at one company, then jumped to the other. Artists crossed over throughout their careers. Ideas travel with people, pretty much always have. When Jim Starlin was inspired by Darkseid, he was doing what every creative person has always done, taking something that excited him and asking, what happens if I take this somewhere different? And his editor's note, steal the better one, wasn't cynicism. That was honestly just practical wisdom about how competition drives quality. When Rob Liefeld built Deadpool, he was working in a tradition that had been running for 40 years. And the character became genuinely interesting precisely because Nicieza understood the joke and leaned into it.
You are...
Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Negasonic Teenage... What the
Wade Wilson is now a parody that has outlasted its source material in popular culture. That's not really copying anymore. That's evolution. The Archers exist in both universes and became completely different people. The Swamp Monsters arrived in the same year from the same apartment. The android heroes landed 2 months apart. And the Underwater King, who got there first, became the cultural afterthought for 50 years until one MCU movie put him back on the map. 80 years of 2 creative universes running parallel, occasionally borrowing from each other, occasionally producing the same idea independently, and occasionally having an editor just say out loud, look, if you're going to steal from the competition, steal the best version. And the characters that came out of all of that are detailed enough and layered enough that you guys are still watching videos about them today, which is either a ringing endorsement of the whole process or proof that the best ideas are pretty much impossible to own. Maybe both. Which one actually got you? The Marvel editor who told his writer to steal a better DC character? The roommates creating the same swamp monster in the same apartment? Drop it in the comments. Genuinely want to know.